Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to talk about delayed gratification, what it actually means, and also tips to help you improve if you feel like you've fallen down this rabbit hole of constantly having a need for like pleasure and buying things and spending and everything like that. So hopefully this video is helpful. But first of all, if you're new here, my name is Jodie. I live and work in London. I'm an Irish person here, but I've lived in London for 10 years in finance. So this is a pretty new channel and I talk about personal finance and like personal money psychology. So if you really want to improve on your spending or your budgeting or your saving, hopefully this channel can help you guys. So first of all, what is delayed gratification? It's essentially the ability to postpone a pleasure or a gain in favor of a later reward. So what that might mean is maybe not buying those pair of £200 shoes right now, but instead saving that £200 and putting it into investments and savings and it growing to £400, and then you can buy your shoes for £200 in the future and then also have an extra £200. That would be an example of delaying your gratification. You still get the pleasure, just in the future, and then you will also have another gain on top of that. So a lot of people fall into instant gratification, which I will define as well. And instant gratification is essentially you're immediately giving yourself pleasure or gain, and you're actually foregoing a benefit in the future. So if we stick with that same example, let's say you're walking down the street and you see those nice pair of shoes in the window. Instead of stopping and thinking about it and giving yourself time before you buy them, you instantly walk in because you instantly want that boost of dopamine, of joy. You want those shoes right now, you want it instantly. That is instant gratification, and unfortunately that is why a lot of people are really struggling and they're paycheck to paycheck, and they may not even understand why. It's because they're constantly in search of that need of pleasure, of gain, of now, of dopamine. And the really interesting thing is, if you look at this chart, is that with instant gratification, you're almost in a bit of a loop or a cycle with yourself. You're constantly buying something and then you feel guilty, so you're looking for another gain of pleasure or dopamine hit, and then you're in this cycle of constantly spending or constantly going into debt, which is of course terrible for your future. So I want to actually talk about a Marshmallow Study. You might be thinking I've lost my mind, but I haven't, don't worry. This was a very popular study that was done in the 70s, and it really gets under the skin of understanding delayed gratification. So essentially it happened in Stanford by psychology in the 70s. And what it was is he gathered school children from the ages of 4 and 6, of course, with the parents' permission. And there was about 36 kids that were involved in this study in Stanford University. And essentially what he did, the psychologist and his team, he, would give a marshmallow to a child in the room and say, you can eat this right now and enjoy it right now, or if you wait until I come back into the room, I will give you 2 marshmallows. And this has been a very popular study since, because some of the kids were able to, distract themselves and not think about the marshmallows so that they would get more marshmallows when he comes back in. And the kids did things like singing to themselves, making a game with themselves, and one even fell asleep as a distraction so that they wouldn't eat the marshmallow. Of course, some kids, didn't exactly follow the rules and ate the marshmallow, which is of course, instant gratification. They wanted it now. Whereas the kids that were able to wait and hold off, what they found was, when they studied the kids down the line when they were older, is the kids that were able to delay their gratification and wait until they got 2 marshmallows, they were more likely to finish college in the future, more likely to have a healthier BMI, healthier weight in the future, and they were able to manage stress more effectively in the future. So this is a really interesting study, and this is why I link back to it, because it's almost like, okay, you're not necessarily born with the skills to delay gratification. Obviously, some of these kids were taught by their parents or the socioeconomic background that they came from. So what came out from this study is that self-control is a habit that can be learned. You're not necessarily born with it. Obviously, these kids had parents or the socioeconomic background that they came from. They were able to learn to put distractions in place, to think about, something else rather than the marshmallow, so that they can control, their urges for instant gratification. Another thing about instant gratification is that humans are often always seeking pleasure. They're seeking dopamine hits, they're seeking adrenaline. This is why things like TikTok and Instagram Reels and everything are so addictive, is because you're getting, a 10-second video, you're getting a 10-second boost of happiness. And that is often, referred to as an instant gratification as well, because you're constantly seeking something rather than actually doing your work on your laptop. You have reverted to your phone to get that pleasure as well. So I want to lead on to delayed gratification and how you can actually master this and have it as a habit for yourself so that you can control your spending, delay what you want to buy and actually look to your future instead. Look into investing and almost looking into the future rather than just living in the now and looking for pleasure right now. So the first way you can do this to really implement delayed gratification into your life is to hide the items and devices in your house that are causing you to get distracted. I'm talking things like phones, of course. Sometimes we have second laptops that we just watch Netflix on. You might have a TV in your bedroom, things like that. If you do have a device like a phone that you feel like you're doom scrolling all of the time and you just can't get out of the habit of looking at your phone so much, there are different ways to do this. So you can either turn your phone off, you can turn it on airplane mode, you can actually, which I've started to do, which is really helpful, you can turn off all of the colors of your phone. And interesting fact, Cillian Murphy, the actor, actually does this. He said this in an interview once, that he has taken away all color from his phone and he deleted apps that he didn't want to use anymore. And this is, of course, a tactic to not be glued to your phone constantly and instead to use that time in better ways, such as starting a new hobby, being more social with your friends, maybe getting more work done, maybe even starting a business. If you feel like you're watching TV or on Instagram for 5 hours every day after work, you could be using that time so much more better and, so much more fruitfully. So I would really recommend this to really see what you're doing with your phone, even if it gets to the point that you hide it in a cookie jar and not look at it from the hours of 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or even just an hour of 7 to 8 p.m. every night. Let's just see how that does for your delayed gratification and your sense of not needing to have pleasure or gain, so quickly. The second thing I'd recommend with trying to implement delayed gratification into your life is setting goals. If you write them down, physically write down the goals that you want to achieve and the milestones you want to achieve as well, it will really help you get to that point. Let's say, for example, you really want to buy a house, but at the minute you really can't think of how you can get that money to save that deposit to buy a house in 2 years' time. If you physically write down this milestone, it kind of cements it more in your brain that this is a key thing that you want to achieve. And that means that every time you go to a cafe or a shop or go to brunch, you're really thinking about what you're buying. Should I buy a brownie with my coffee right now, or should I maybe use that money elsewhere? Should I buy those second pair of shoes right now, or should I use that money elsewhere? Should I go on the 5th brunch of the month, or should I maybe use that money elsewhere? When you write down these milestones, it really helps, you guide you in that direction of actually where you want to go in the future. And this leads into point 3, which is thinking about your choices and the consequences of those choices. Like, as I said, if you start to write down your goals and really kind of understand where your money is going every month, you will start to realize that actually you can afford to save £200 or £300 a month. Because if I just don't do those things that are, buying extra clothes that are just sitting in my wardrobe anyway, and I'm not even wearing them, if I use that money every month to put into a savings pot or an investment pot or a high yield savings account, and that way I can, save £200 every month, and by 3 years' time, I'll have enough money, to contribute towards a house. These are the things that you actually really want to do. So the fourth tip with delayed gratification is actually the 3-day rule. And what this means is, let's say, for example, you walk into a shop and see a lovely coat for £200, okay? And instead of buying it instantly, you wait 3 days before you make a decision about buying it. And 9 times out of 10, when the 3rd day comes back around, you've either completely forgotten about that coat, you've realized actually that coat is a bit too expensive, or you've realized I've got 4 other coats at home, I don't need another coat. So again, it's making your brain stop and think and really analyze as to whether you need this thing or it's more of a want in that moment and you're just looking for instant pleasure, instant gain, instant gratification. I think instant gratification is quite a problem at the minute that not a lot of people are talking about. So if you've noticed some of these traits in your everyday life, maybe stop and think, can you implement these tips to delay that gratification, to still get that item, to still get that pleasure in the future, but instead to focus on something a little bit more positive for right now. Maybe how you can save, how you can invest for your future, how you can maybe be a bit more minimalist and have less stuff. Okay, a lot of instant gratification is mainly buying stuff because they feel a little bit empty somewhere else inside. So it's important to understand your core wants and why you're maybe tapping that card, paying cash for things you actually don't even want. Okay, so really have a stop and think about what you're doing in your everyday life and how you can change that. Thanks guys, I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any comments or you feel like some of this has really struck a nerve with you guys, maybe share it down in the comments below and we can kind of share our stories on maybe we've fallen into instant gratification. I know I have for sure, and it's almost like a mindfulness activity to try and delay gratification sometimes. But just to let you know, I post 2 videos a week on personal finance, so if that's the kind of thing you're after, it would really help me out to subscribe as I'm a pretty new channel. But yeah, I'll see you soon guys. Thanks, bye.